everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to continue working on our Oliver 550 diesel here. We've got our fuel system all buttoned up. Now we're going to start putting the rest of it back together and see if we can get it fired up. This may end up stretching into a couple of videos because I think we've got quite a bit of work to do here. But we'll see how it goes. First thing we're going to do is change all the valve springs and get the top of the engine sorted out. We have to remove the valve gear and the oil line and all the push rods, and all that'll literally be left is valve springs sticking up the top of the head. Alright, we got everything taken away from here. Now this is the tool we made before to pressurize the cylinder to prevent the valves from falling down. So we've got that in there. We're going to pressurize it with compressed air. And then we're going to use our valve spring compressor tool to compress the valve spring. We'll get the locks out. And then we'll be able to lift the valve spring off and replace it with our new ones that are over here. I'm going to go grab my little magnet because I got a funny feeling I'm going to need that. Little magnet, where are you? There it is. Little magnet and my little tiny screwdriver. Okay, are you ready? Now, depending on how much leak down we've got in these cylinders, the compressor may fire up, so I might end up yelling over the compressor, or maybe I'll wait till it stops and I'll try to speak in between cycles of the compressor. But we're going to find out. Oh, see that cylinder number 4 don't leak too bad at all, does it? Okay, so now we've got that done. This is the exhaust valve on cylinder number 4. So this thing just no different than doing it on a car, right? There we are. So we can see a little bit. There, you can see that. It just compresses the spring. Now, something else I didn't bring is my little hammer. There we go. They do get stuck together, so you just give them a little tap on the... Come on. That's really in there good, isn't it? I don't want to hit it too hard and have everything go flying. That'd be bad. Hang on. More than one way to skin a cat. Another way you can do this . The big old if you got one that doesn't want to come apart, you need a socket that fits over top of that, and you got to hold it because if it bounces, you'll lose everything. But there you can see. See that? We got one, and now we'll be able to get the other one easily with the compressor. You just got to be careful doing that because if it gets away from you and you lose the lock, and it's an oddball sized one, which invariably it will be. If you've got a drawer full of normal ones, you'll need an oddball one. That's just how it goes. Now this thing, there we go, it releases now. And then we'll just use our little magnet. Get that guy out of there. I probably could make a tool that went down over these rocker shaft studs here, and you could pry down on it. If I was doing these all the time, I would make one like that. I've got one around somewhere for a Chrysler small block, actually, that I made years ago, but and there's our spring. Now let's match it up with the new one. See if, there you go. That's, oh, sorry. It matches up with the new one, so that's good. We're not going to go bonkers and start putting valve seals in it and all that stuff. I just want the thing to run. It didn't give any indication that it needed valve seals anyway, so we're not going to worry about that. So we'll get our valve spring compressor. And I mean, these springs are not exactly, you could just about push them down with your fingers and get the keepers in, but we'll use the tool. There we go. And we'll give her a squish. We get our locks. One in. I gotta squash it down some more. Might have to. Yeah, there we go. There's one. Just go slow, take your time. 'Cause these little tiny parts, man, when they fly, they're hard to find. And then you can pull up on the compressor a little bit to keep the locks in place and release it. And there we are. Repeat 7 more times and we're all done. That's all I'm done. But on number 1 cylinder here, you can hear we've got some leaky valves. That exhaust valve is really bad. The intake valve isn't too bad, but it's the exhaust in number 1 that's the problem. And doing that doesn't seem to help. Sometimes you'll have, from them sitting around or whatever, a little piece of crap in there, and you can get it kind of sealed up, but that one's having none of it. Anyway, it is what it is. Nothing I'm going to do about it right now. Now it's time to dive into our book and see what we can find out about lashing the valves. I want to see if there's any kind of a reference mark for timing on the front of this thing somewhere, or sometimes there'll be a little door on the bell housing you open up and see a mark there. We'll find out. Okay, we got this all put back together now. I'm going to go ahead now and check the valve lash, because we have had it apart and back together. I did some reading. There isn't really any accessible marks on here. You can pull this plug out and there's a mark in there, but you know what? The way we did it before, just watching the valves, that gets us close enough. So we're going to start with number 1 here, and it's 10 on the intakes and 20 on the exhaust. So we'll see what we've got here. You can see that's gone loose. It's just a function of, you take this stuff off and put it back on again. It's amazing how it'll change it. They've both gone a little bit loose. So we're gonna go through one by one, cylinder by cylinder. We'll just go through the firing order and get the valve lash all set. Then we can close up the top of the engine. Another way to do this, if you can't find any marks and you're having difficulty determining where top dead center is, you just turn the engine And when you see one valve down, like this is an exhaust valve down, you can measure the intake valve, and that'll work too. So you just, whatever valve is down, set the one beside it, and once you've gone through the whole thing, you've got it. Now I've got our new valve cover gasket here, and it's a die-cut piece of neoprene. And what you'll notice is that the valve cover the ends are slightly tapered in like that, and this radius is tighter than this radius. So we figured out which way this thing has to go. Now we're going to try and get some weather strip adhesive or something and glue this thing onto this cover, because it's just from being scrunched up in a little bag for so long. Number one, it shrunk a bit, and number two, it doesn't want to maintain its shape. So we'll fiddle around with that, get that stuck on here, and then we can get the cover installed back on the engine. There, that went pretty well. I've got it greased up so it doesn't stick to the head, so hopefully it'll stay stuck to the valve cover. You can see here, it does need a little, I'm going to give it a little stretch like that just before I put it on, and that should stay there till I get it clamped down. There, we got our valve cover all buttoned up, and I've gone ahead and put the energy cell plugs back in. Now we're going to get the intake manifold back installed. I can see here it's got one gasket there. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, I can see there's one there, because I ordered a pair of gaskets and they only sent me one. But yeah, that's handy. But we've got two on there, so that's fine. It's not like this. It's not like a gas engine where you're worried about like a vacuum leak can really screw the carburetor up and stuff like that. It's a diesel engine. It'll run fine just like that with no intake manifold on it at all. Except, you know, it will have the opportunity to suck in a lot of garbage and ruin itself. The intake manifold is basically just to close up the intake tract to make sure it's only sucking in clean air. So we'll be okay. We can reuse these gaskets, and it'll be just fine. But now after fitting that on, I see it's probably better to get my ventilation box on first, because it's kind of behind the intake elbow. So we'll do that. Now I'm going to start working on this exhaust manifold. It's just it's a big blob, and it's a ignorant thing to work with, because it's so big, and it's sort of half together and half not together. We got to get all these stuck bolts out of it. So we're going to heat one by one. We're going to heat these bolts and get them out, so we can get this all separated, clean all the threads, start with new hardware, so that maybe sometime in the future we could actually take this thing apart. First thing I've done is got two of the mounting studs that came out of the block cleaned up, or come out of the head, I guess. So we're going to go get those put back in, and then we're going to start slowly heating and removing all of this hardware off of this thing. Hooray, we got this mess all apart. We did break off a couple of bolts. Some of them were just hard to get the heat on. And this guy here, I had this whole thing red, and it still busted off. So we're going to drill it out. Lucky it goes right through, so we can start in from the back, and that'll get us nice and centered. And we'll drill through, retap, and I'll show you the other one. Kind of the same situation. Luckily, the bolts I used on a lot of this old stuff were pretty soft, which, well, is why they break so easily. But also, it makes them easy to get them out. Then we put a 3/8 tap through it. Where is it? There it is. And it's as good as new. So now we got to get that one fixed up. And we'll also chase out the threads on this one and the one that's behind the vice jaw there. There is our exhaust manifold all back on. Now the muffler, you can remember, it bolts on the flange there, runs parallel to it. And then the exhaust pipe comes out of it and it's strapped to there's a bracket on the side of the hood and it goes up. This one, if you recall, had a kind of a homemade thing in it. It went down underneath. We don't want that anymore. We want it to go up like it's supposed to. I have to look now at the muffler. I think it is in pretty bad shape, but we'll see what we could do with it. We can see everything inside it is all loose and rattling around. The inlet flange is still on it, but the outlet flange is long gone. So we've got two choices. We can try to work with this, or we can replace it with either a new muffler that is correct or something else that we think we can make work. I'd like to get this out of here. That'd be a good start. We'll get it. And I kind of wonder, see if I get that. Oh, if I get that out of there, and we can weld a new little stub on here, it kind of gets us back to square one. I'm not really sure it's going to do much muffling because I think everything that was once in it is long gone. But at least it'll physically let us kind of connect the parts back how they were supposed to sort of be connected. We could even weld this thing back in. Yeah, it would be going that way, I guess. Cut it down a little bit. You can see there as how it tapers and necks down. Not good for the exhaust flow. But if we cut it off down there and attach our new upright pipe tube, we'd be all set, wouldn't we? I kind of think that's the easiest thing to do. Oh, there we go. It ain't pretty by a long shot, but it'll work. Now the big heat shield goes back on, and then the muffler goes up in underneath it. And we're going to use new hardware everywhere we can and put lots of lead plate on it. So if we ever have to take this thing apart again, it'll actually come apart without all this torching and drilling and tapping. What a nightmare. Okay, that's that all buttoned up. Now I'm going to work on the front. We've got the thermostat housing and the fan and pulleys and stuff. All right, we got this all back together. I made a new gasket for the thermostat housing. We put our new thermostat in, and that's all bolted down. I put the fan on. The fan's on the right way now with the original spacer and the pulley, but listen to this. We got some problems with the water pump here, so I'm just trying to figure out now if I want to get a rebuilt one for it or a rebuild kit. Figure out what the heck I got to do with this, because it's not a fun job getting at the front of this engine with all this nose and everything on this thing. Not fun at all, so I'll have to figure that out. This here is a block heater. Screws into this T, which is the lower rad hose. And it's old school. It's old school for sure. But I just plugged it in, tickled a little current into it, and it works just fine. So we'll clean this up and put it back in. Let me show you what I found with the water pump. So here it is here. There's two different ones. And I found out once I got it off. This backing plate here, some of them are held on with 4 screws like this one is, and some of them have a 5th screw up here in the center, and I think these ones might be a little bit further apart. You need to make sure which one you've got. This is a 4-screw one, so we're going to go ahead and order that. I'm going to order a new fan belt for it. And like I said, we don't need a new block heater because ours is fine. So, well, like usual, I'll see you when the parts get here. Another thing I have to figure out is there is a rubber bushing that goes inside here. And there's another little structure, kind of like that supports this end of the fuel tank and the rad shell and everything. Well, that's what we've got left of our rubber bushing. So we're going to have a look around here and see if we can find something from a car or something else that we can cobble up and make work. Our new water pump has showed up. It looks the same. We want to make sure that it's pretty close. That one might be pushed on a tiny bit further, but it's good enough for this. Aside from that, everything looks the same. Here's our new backing plate. Goes like that. And you can see there the holes are the same as in the original one. So all we got to do is put that on and clean up the surface on the engine block, and we can get this thing put on. Oh, that went in quite nicely. All good. Nice and smooth and quiet, unlike the old one. Now we can go ahead and put on the pulley and the spacer and the fan, and then we'll see. I ordered a new fan belt for it, but I didn't match it up. I just ordered it by, looking it up by application. So theoretically, it is the right fan belt for a 1958 Oliver 550. We'll find out when we try to put it on. Well, I'd say we got the right belt. That's pretty good. Now we got to fix up the radiator and the grill shell. This here, the overflow tube, it was steel, and it was all rotted off and plugged on top of that. So I got a piece of copper, 3/8 copper line. I bent it up. I soldered it in. And now what I have to do in the morning, I got to go over to the shed and get a little piece of hose that I can attach to there to drop it down. Also, while I was at it, I chased these threads on here, and on the rad shell itself, we had a couple of broken screws, the screws that hold the grill in. So we managed to get them heated up and get them out. And this little guy here, man, I didn't have too much to grab, but somehow the vice grip got a hold of it and we got it out. I think we'll call it a day for now. We got lots done. In the next one, we'll get the rad and all our new hoses and stuff installed, filled up. The fuel tank, we got to deal with that, get it on, get the fuel system bled up. We need to put in the new motor oil, and then we can try and start it and see what happens. It's been a while since it's been running, but yeah, it should be okay. Anyway, I'd like to thank you for tuning into our channel. Hope you'll come and see us again. And until then, I'm Kevin, saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.